I don't know who that is, to tell you the truth. I apologize, man, if I see you at the Jack's Beach, bars are just hanging out, man. Hit me up and we can get the next one. It's all good.
All right.
Hey, the Super Bowls aren't going anywhere. All right?
No.
There's going to be plenty of them.
There will be plenty. There'll be more parties to get to. All right. The president of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, David Baker. We're talking Tony Baselli, obviously didn't get in. And we really feel like it was close, too. But David Baker's the guy that knocks on everybody's door. So you got a visual of that guy. That's become a thing.
Yeah.
So yesterday, I'm sitting in the hotel restaurant, grabbed a little lunch before we head over to the stadium, and I was by myself. And 2 tables over, David Baker comes in.
Interesting.
And he was by himself. So then somebody came in and started talking to him. Obviously, everybody knows him. They're a popular guy. And he was bringing the entire class of 2019 to the Super Bowl, but he was grabbing a little lunch before then. Mm-hmm. And I told, the guys that he was next to me, and I said, I don't know if this is a friend or an enemy right now, because we're all bitter about the Baselli thing.
Of course.
And so I eventually, once someone else stopped talking to him, I just introduced myself, and I started off with asking him. It was kind of a fun little conversation. Very nice man, by the way. So I wanted to find out some more details about the whole thing. He does not have a vote. He runs the meeting of that vote that takes place on Saturday. And I said to him, all right, you got to give me your favorite knock on the door, your favorite moment. And he said it was Jerry Kramer, who had to wait 45 years to get in.
Yeah.
And so I could see
cool
that.
He
actually always says those senior members, those guys that played the game a long time ago and just getting in or deserving but didn't get in the time period, he said those are really special. And you brought up Jerry Kramer. That was his first one off the list. And, of course, he was very politically correct about all this. He said they're all great, in their own different way. But memorable-wise, he said Kurt Warner, too, because he followed Kurt Warner through his arena days and then had seen him go through the NFL days and now to this. He also brought up Brett Favre. He said Brett Favre knew he was in the whole time. He's 10 seconds. It took 10 seconds to elect Brett Favre to the Hall of Fame. Yeah. But he understood the moment. He thought it was kind of cool. So a little background, just sharing some of the conversation I had with him. And so then I did eventually say, hey, I'm from Jacksonville. Yep. I said, we're waiting for Tony Baselli to get in. I said, we're hoping next year's the year. And I thought it was really interesting. Again, from a politically correct standpoint, he said, well, you never know when the year is going to be, but Tony Baselli is getting in the Hall of Fame.
That was his response.
And that was his response. He said he's getting in the Hall of Fame. And now we always hear right?
Yeah.
We always hear that. But I just thought it was interesting from the guy that runs the meeting. And coming out of that meeting, we had heard that there was a push for Baselli. The debate was going on. It was a 26-minute, I think the second longest delivery or debate of a finalist. Mm-hmm. And people interpreted that a couple different ways. Well, if they debated for a long time, maybe they debated about him not making the top 10 or, whatever it might be.
No, for sure.
Well, this was already in the top 10 part, exactly. So that's not right. But they said it could be a bad thing for debating. I didn't look at it that way. I thought that the longer the debate, that means it's pretty close. He might be 6 or 5 or 7 or somewhere in that final 2 or 3 getting in the Hall. And so I thought that when he told me, he said he will get in the Hall of Fame.
That's good.
I thought it was this is a guy that understands the process. This is a guy that sees it all the time. And this is a guy saying, yeah, you might have to wait a little bit longer, but he's getting in. Now, he was a little dismissive of saying next year, but I thought it was pretty good perspective. This was not I think he probably already felt threatened once I told him I was from Jacksonville.
Good.
And then the other part I asked him about, I said, okay, give me a background on this knocking on the door. And the phone ringing. Because if you don't know the process, basically if you're a Hall of Fame finalist, the top 5 find out by getting a knock on the door. Yep. The guys that make it. The other 5 get a phone call. And so Tony's gotten the phone call the last few years. And I said, where did that come from? Whose idea was that? And how long ago was it? I didn't realize this was just a handful of years ago it started. And at that time, someone else was walking up that he knew. And I think David Baker was going to be very humble about it and just kind of say, well, it's an idea we came up with. This guy's like, well, he came up with it. It was his idea. So I guess it was Baker's idea to come up with this whole dramatic and almost made-for-television type of deal with the knock on the door or the phone call. But I think it's become a very cool thing in a way for the Hall of Fame. And it's been something, at least if you have a member of the Hall that might be on your franchise or might be a local guy, you anticipate. There's a level of anticipation about it.
I think it's cool, but at the same time, and hey, I'm never going to go to the Hall of Fame, so I don't know, but I got to think, like, even Tony, like, I can't imagine just sitting around to get a phone call or a knock on the door to see, hey, you're invited or hey, you're not. It's like being a kid, in grade school and waiting to see if you get invited to like your friend's birthday party. Like, you don't know. Like, maybe it's like the sweetest birthday party ever. They got pools, they got clowns, they got everything. They got a full menu. So like, you're just sitting there waiting to see, well, I hope I get a phone call. I hope I get invited. That's a hard thing, man. I can't, and hey, guess what? You get to do it year after year after year, and sometimes you don't even get in the party.
Yeah.
Like, it's rough.
It's tough.
Yeah, it is.
Listen, we know this. We've talked to Baselli for 3 years. I've now followed this thing as he's a finalist. It's a very hard afternoon.
I believe
when you don't get the knock. And like we always say, he's a super competitive guy because anybody who plays at that level is super competitive. So you want to be there. And then he told us during the week last week in our interview, he said, it just feels like they're saying you're not good enough. And even though they've complimented you for the last however many months or years, making you a finalist and showing your resume, at least at that moment it says you're not good enough. And, we had some folks that I know were in the room, and they just said it's just a really deflating. And this one might have been the most deflating. There was momentum in the building, in the hotel lobby. This was taking place, the knock on the doors in the Patriots, actually, hotel. So we were in the lobby, and even feeling it there and talking to the folks that were in the room a little bit, eventually, they could feel it. And then just boom, just like a pin pops the balloon, and it's out. So it's going to happen. I think now it's set up 2020 to be perfect because, like you said, Troy Polamalu is really the only lock. And now this opened the door for the linemen to get in. And I think they might even get a couple of linemen in next year. But it's a tough deal when it didn't happen. I think it will happen next year. We know it will happen sometime. And the more and more I cover this, I think it's such a big deal, Jacksonville. It's a big deal for him to get into the Hall of Fame. And that hit me probably more than any year this year. I was like, you start feeling like, man, this is the first time, 25 years of this franchise, Hall of Fame player, first pick for this organization, and he's going to the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio.
It's only, like, and I've said this before, like, the Hall of Fame is a direct correlation of the effect that player had on the game. And you speak from a Jacksonville standpoint. Yes, obviously Baselli, the first pick of the Jaguars. I think he was pick number 2 of the draft. Yep. I mean, obviously it had a great effect on the city of Jacksonville, but it also had effect on just the whole NFL. I mean, Jacksonville, we haven't had a Hall of Fame guy yet in. I mean, Tony's gonna be the first guy obviously voted in. It's gonna be a great day when that happens, but make no mistake, I mean, we're still waiting to get that first guy in, and he's left a huge imprint not only on the city but also the league in general.
Yeah, in the league.
So, exactly.
In a broad view, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
2 real quick thoughts on it. One, I do think in a strange way, the waiting these 3 years, if it happens next year, will make it even more special. And I think there's been this connection now between the fan base and Tony that already existed, but I think it's even more so. Almost in a way where we get kind of mad about it. That kind of connects you even more with Tony. And Tony's so good at bringing everybody along for the ride, in my opinion, at it. So that part of it. And I also want to say this. Sam Kavaris delivers the, kind of speaks on the behalf of Tony to the whole committee. I think we got to be a little careful to pin this not getting in on one person. I mean, there's a presentation here. I have no idea. I'm not in the room. So we saw a little clip of video, but I'm not in the room. So I have no idea. But I got a feeling that presentation's pretty darn good. I think Sam's pretty eloquent with it and wants them to get in. And you just got to convince everybody else, and it's got to happen in due time. I do think it hit me this weekend, though. I think we could do a better job. I think our media in town could do a better job. I think I could do it. I think we're at these events, And I think we got to push it even more over the next calendar year. And so I don't know if we can impact that at all, but we got to keep bringing Baselli's name up. When we're at the draft, when we're at the Super Bowl, we're at the Senior Bowl, we see these guys. Pete Prisco's done a fantastic job of that, but more of us have to do that. So
Brent,
hopefully we can join that campaign.
You just say the word, I'll start threatening some people. You just say the word, Brent.
Or we could just do that, but we'll try to play a little role in it if we can. But I think Tony Baselli's getting it in 2020. Let's hope that's the year. Baselli, 2020, start the campaign. More to come, including Stay in Your Lane. Next. Welcome back to ESPN 690 Action Sports Jacks on the radio, and had a big weekend on TV as well. CBS 47 and Fox 30 had our Making of a Champion special Saturday night into Sunday morning, and then, of course, the Super Bowl on CBS 47 last night delivered big numbers, but the numbers were down compared to past Super Bowls. Which is interesting. And I have a thought on that real quick, and then we've got Stay in Your Lane. We got to get to DeAndre Francois a little bit too. But everybody will say, oh, it was because it was a boring game. It was 13-3, so nobody watched. Well, that's not the case, at least not in Jacksonville. Jacksonville had like a 46 rating and a 65 share, and it didn't fluctuate a lot. So the people that were watching were watching. Now, could you have boosted it a little bit with a super exciting track meet maybe in the fourth quarter and it was coming down the wire? But keep in mind, this game was coming down the wire. It was 3-3 with 10 minutes to go in the game. Mm-hmm. So that part didn't escape anybody. It was just a lack of points. But everybody is going to say it. You'll hear it numerous times. Well, ratings were down because there wasn't a lot of scoring. And I'm just telling you, that's not the right answer. It's not. At least locally, I saw the ratings in Jacksonville. They did not fluctuate a lot. They didn't say, hey, this game's boring, I'm turning it off. People did not turn the game off. Not as many people came to the game, and I have two thoughts on that, and they really are all about the teams. One, New England, where people are tired of the Patriots a little bit. They're fatigued. There's no doubt there's Patriots fatigue. Outside of New England, their fan base continues to grow because people are front runners and jump on the bandwagon, and that's okay. But outside of New England fans, everybody's got Patriot fatigue. We've heard all the storylines. It's hard to even talk about them that much in terms of legacy because we just did it 2 years ago when they won their 5th Super Bowl. The storyline is somewhat boring when it comes to New England Patriots. The other part is the L.A. Rams. The Rams don't have a fan base.
Nope.
I mean, they have an old-school fan base, and now they're trying to connect that old school back to this one and create new fans. Well, they've only been there 2 years. There were not a lot of Rams fans there. Of course, it's across the country. But I'm saying that L.A. market that everybody said, oh, it's the L.A. market. It's the L.A. market. It's big. They'll get a big number. No, I actually think the Rams hurt them because there's just not this diehard fan base. There's not that connection like there is in so many other NFL cities because they went away for so long.
Well, and it was insane, too. I mean, you saw, and I'm not sure what Friday and Saturday were like, but when I was there for Super Bowl week, I mean, I might have saw maybe 2 or 3 Rams jerseys or Rams beanies, Rams jackets. I mean, it was the city of Atlanta, at least when I was there, was overtaken with Patriot fans.
Flooded with Patriots fans.
It was obvious, everyone asking for lobster rolls and getting the car. It was just a lot of accents and stuff like that going on. You didn't really see a lot of Rams fans. So,
and I've got one more theory on it. Mm-hmm. I think New Orleans fans were so ticked off that I wouldn't be surprised. Now, you have no idea, but I haven't seen the rating in New Orleans. But I think New Orleans fans were so keep in mind now, you have 2 really ticked off cities.
Yeah.
Right? You have New Orleans and you have St. Louis because they lost the Rams. So my thought is, did those cities, I'd love for somebody, and maybe I'll try to get these numbers. I'd love for somebody to show me the ratings in New Orleans the last 3-4 years and the ratings in St. Louis when they had a team for the Super Bowl compared to this one. And I'm telling you, I bet there's a huge drop that impacted the national rating for the Super Bowl.
You're absolutely right. I mean, did you see what the Saints fans were doing in New Orleans or not?
I did. They were all out in the streets, so they weren't watching.
Because I forgot what they called it, but one of my best friends who was at actually my Super Bowl party, his dad lives in New Orleans, and he was at this event. And basically what it was like an anti-Super Bowl party. So they obviously didn't play the game at all, and it was like this giant – it was like Mardi Gras, basically. They had these floats. They had a giant parade. It's Bourbon Street, so it was getting crazy there. But I bet you're right there, Brent, in the fact that nobody in New Orleans was watching that game at all.
Yeah, and again, nobody is.
Why would you want to?
Nobody is probably a little bit much, but we're talking millions of people, and that impacts the rating, and I think it probably happened. One other note. Twitter is so funny to me sometimes. We were talking about this over the weekend. You'll tweet some things, and you're like, you know what? I think people might this might tick people off, or this might. And I don't really do that. I don't tweet with an agenda.